Hey everybody, what is going on? This is Anthony with VR365 and VR Roundtable. Yes, we are doing a special cross episode today. We had a little bit of technical difficulties before we got started here, and I'm not seeing anybody in chat yet, but hopefully that will be coming up soon. I'll probably have to resize chat a little bit here. But basically, we're going to do an episode. Well, basically what happened was Chris and Gary were unable to make the normal VR Roundtable episode this week, and we weren't going to have a VR Roundtable episode at all, but I was talking with Steve, and I was like, you know what, there's some pretty good news and stuff. There's some interesting things that are going on, so I thought, why not bring Steve on VR365? And I was saying, hey, we could do a cross VR Roundtable episode where we kind of do both. And so this episode is being recorded on the VR365 channel, but it will end up on VR Roundtable as well. And so we do have a couple of people coming in to chat. Like I said, we did have some technical difficulties. Everything was absolutely perfect last night when we tested it, but now we're getting going. Okay, Steve, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. These technical difficulties bother me. It's kind of not in my DNA to have technical difficulties, so don't like it. But we can blame Microsoft for it. As always, it's Microsoft's fault. They just like to change things and let the users of their stuff just figure it out and deal with it on their own. And that's kind of crap. But I think we're through it. So let's move forward and have a good show.
Yeah, you can blame me for the technical difficulties. They follow me everywhere, let me tell you. Okay, so chat might be a little bit off, but we can worry about that later. Okay, so anyways, on today's show, what I thought we could do is go over some of the news that's happened this week, like some of the biggest stories of the week, and kind of get your take on it, Steve. I've covered pretty much this stuff every day. You know, Monday through Sunday, I'm doing a show here, and I cover things on a daily basis, but on VR Roundtable, it's kind of a weekly roundup. So I thought we could kind of go over some of the biggest stories. So going back to Monday, the biggest story that I have on Monday is there was a Lenovo deal, $180 for a Lenovo headset, you know, the mixed reality headset at Walmart, $180. And the great thing about this is this wasn't refurbished. You know, this is a brand new headset. Now, it's probably not going on anymore, but did you happen to see this on Monday? And what do you think about some of these unbelievable prices that you can get on some of these Windows mixed reality headsets?
I have a torn opinion on it, really. Like, I think the low price is awesome, and I think a lot of people that that already have VR, like a Rift or a Vive, I think they will appreciate the LCD. It's kind of like using an Oculus Go, the increased resolution. The screens look real nice, although the blacks aren't the high quality. But the price is good, and for those that don't have VR, it's a way to step into it. But I'm not as sold on the whole Windows MR platform itself. Like, it's just got a little more jank to it. Like, I don't know when. I'm sure people that love the Windows MR headsets are gonna like tell me it doesn't have jank, but I experience jank on it, so I don't like the platform as much as I do Vive or the Rift, the platforms of their use. So, but still, the price is good. Price is good, and hopefully more people pick it up.
Yeah, honestly, I would have grabbed one myself. One of the problems that I have on the whole Windows mixed reality front, and I've mentioned this a number of times, is I'm still using an incredibly ancient CPU, and Windows Mixed Reality does require some instruction sets that my CPU doesn't have, and so I'm kind of boned there. Like, if I went ahead and bought one, I wouldn't be able to do anything with it right away until I upgraded my CPU. But man, you see that $180 price, it is incredibly tempting. Okay, so moving on to Tuesday, and some of the biggest things that we had going on Tuesday is the release of Déraciné. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but that hit PlayStation VR. It's probably one of the biggest games of November, I'd have to say, at least before we had all these other games coming out of the woodwork. What was your thoughts on Déraciné? Is this kind of a game that you were okay with basically skipping?
You know, yes and no. I'm in a position, and when you're in the same position, you want to try everything, and you feel like you are somehow responsible, and you should speak to every game that comes out, or at least every game of note. So the problem is that it seems to be a very polarizing game. You know, I checked out a lot of the reviews, and some people either liked it and thought it was solid. Other reviewers thought that it was pretty bad. And the problem for us is that it's a $39. I think it's
I think it's 29. I think it's 29.
Yeah. 29, 39, whatever. It's like it's in that asking price that makes it hard to roll the dice, especially when I have a big backlog of games and other things I'm checking out. So I didn't feel real motivated to jump into it and spend the money. I would like to check it out, and I'm very interested in what From does, because From, I really like the Dark Souls. I didn't really like Demon Souls as much, but that was a different time for me. But Dark Souls and then Bloodborne, I really dig Bloodborne. And I heard that there was a sort of maybe a teaser in Déraciné that suggested that it might have taken place in a time before Bloodborne, like it's a prequel era or something. So I'm very interested, but it just something's not pushing me, saying, "Hey, run out, buy it, and sit down and play it."
Yeah. And, one of the things I did hear about it, though, is like, you remember playing Lone Echo, and you would have that relationship with, I Am Rut says, can't get enough of First Contact. Keep that trailer rolling. I was actually trying to change the trailer there, but I was having a little problem. I'll wait a minute for that. But one of the things I heard about Déraciné is similar, and who knows how we're supposed to pronounce this, but similar to Lone Echo, you have this interpersonal relationship with some of these characters at a certain point in the game. And at least that's what I heard when I was reading the review by Upload VR, is that it's kind of a hard game to get into, but there is something there with that interpersonal relationship with the characters, but it's kind of set in this weird era. They talk differently, so you gotta buy into that whole thing, the whole experience.
Yeah, and again, I think like so what I've seen of it, the game looks like it's very, and I don't even have a trailer or anything playing on VR Roundtables in here either, but it's a very slow, like you interact with some things, and it's not exciting. It's you want to take it slow, you want to just kind of enjoy the ambiance, and I think it's typically my bag. Like I'm more about a polished game that has good ambiance and all that, but there's something about this one just isn't making me want to jump into it a whole lot. Like I want to play it, but I'm not like, ooh, I can't wait to get off this call so I can go play Déraciné. Like it's not like that, and I kind of I want it to be like that, So
yeah, okay. And then some other stuff that we heard on Tuesday: Unseen Diplomacy has been announced. Now, not much information on it. The only thing we really got actually was basically like the Steam logo for Unseen Diplomacy. No other information. We have no idea when this is coming out. Now, this developer, Triangular Pixels, I believe, is the developer, right? They made the original Unseen Diplomacy. Then they made this PlayStation exclusive smash hit Plunder. And that game, as far as I know, it fell pretty flat. Now, I know that it was on the UK PlayStation Store for like £30 or something pretty crazy, or maybe the equivalent of like 30 American dollars, which I thought was really high for Smash Hit Plunder. I played it a little bit. It's okay. But now we found out about Unseen Diplomacy 2. I'm excited about this. Hey, I know you got this TP Cast. Did you ever try Unseen Diplomacy with your wireless TP Cast?
Kept forgetting to. I think I want to, and just I keep forgetting to. In part because I don't think Unseen Diplomacy is particularly good. Like, it's a neat little demonstration of how you can use a room scale space and kind of twist and turn through that space to convince yourself that you're in a much bigger space, a much bigger place, and that is cool. But it doesn't necessarily make it enjoyable. Like for me, that was cool in summer of 2016. It's not cool anymore, and it's just my opinion. So no one, put the pitchforks away for now. But I'm of a mind like I want to get past the tricks, and I want to get past the tech demos, and we don't really know much about Unseen Diplomacy 2 in that regard. Is it going to be a more fully featured game? Are they going to enable thumbstick locomotion in Unseen Diplomacy 2? Because, in case, I don't know if we're going to talk about it, but the results, maybe it was last week, but, room scale is dead, like, not very many Rift owners have a 3-camera or more sensor setup. So I don't particularly believe that large room scale games, and I mean room scale in the true sense of room scale, not stand in the middle of a play space with 3D tracking or 360-degree tracking. I mean walk around games like Unseen Diplomacy, games like A Chair in the Room, that initially it got a patch recently that lets you locomote with your touchpad or your thumbstick, but originally that game you had to have a certain size play space, and you walked around in that play space natively, and I think that is pretty much dead. Maybe I'll pull a Sebastian and say room scale is dead. How he did with declaring Rift 2.
But you know what, Steve, I bet your kids would really like Unseen, like just crawling around on the ground, because you crawl through those little tunnels right on the ground, and I'm sure your kids would enjoy that. Like I always thought when I was playing that in Unseen Diplomacy, and it's a tech demo, it's not a game, it's a tech demo, but it kind of shows you how you can redirect people and put them in these really small spaces and have a door over here and a door over there, and it makes you feel like you're in a much bigger area. It's just kind of tricking you. But when I was crawling around in those crawl spaces, I couldn't help but think, imagine if I was doing this with a freaking alien chasing me at the same time. Like, imagine if Alien Isolation and Unseen Diplomacy had a baby. That would be kind of cool. But yeah, we'll have to see.
That's a good idea. Like when I say that, I think, I do think room scale is dead, because I don't think that there's going to be, for any time, maybe if we want to talk theoretically about something 20 years from now, but anytime in the relative near future, say from now to 5 years from now, I don't think that there's going to be any developer that sits and says, hey, we want to make Alien Isolation 2, we want to give it VR support, and we want it to be a full room scale game that plays like Unseen Diplomacy. I'd agree to an extent that would be cool, but I don't see someone actually giving it serious chops to make it like a really good game that leverages that technology, because they're just going to look at it and say, well, VR is a niche. The amount of people that actually could do room scale of this size is even more niche within a giant niche, and I don't see that being a decision that anyone makes, and that's kind of what I mean when I say room scale is dead. Like, not that it wouldn't be cool to like play an amazing game that did all these things. I just don't think we're ever going to get it, at least not in any sort of relative near terms that makes it almost even worth talking about.
What I was thinking though is, like, if we got to the point where we're making arcade location-based entertainment arcade games, right? And let's say they were made with a certain scale where this is an arcade experience, but if you happen to be a home owner that has a really huge space, maybe you could actually get this like room scale arcade experience in, like, if you had a really huge room, but it would be such a tiny niche of a niche, it wouldn't even be worth it. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on.
I think those things are going to exist for the location-based stuff, like, I'm drawing a blank on the name of but all those location-based entertainment companies that have VR experiences, like this sort of thing, it will exist for them, but I don't think we're going to get mainstream with it.
Yeah, the Void and IMAX and all of that. But like if they had a version of it where if you had crazy space at home, sure, you can go ahead and buy this version as well. That would be kind of cool, but so few people would have it. Okay, another thing I have on Tuesday is Titan Slayer 2. I have that running on my trailer over here. It came out and it's $30. I was a little bit surprised by that. Any interest whatsoever on Titan Slayer 2? Did you play Titan Slayer 1 at all, or try the demo or anything?
Didn't play it. Didn't play the first one. Didn't play the second one. It doesn't seem to have gotten too much attention, so it's not really on my radar.
Okay. And then, so we can go ahead and move on to Wednesday. What was going on Wednesday, and I'm just throwing up a Polybius trailer on the screen right now, and we found out about Polybius is finally heading to PCVR. And the funny thing is when we first heard about this, like when the information first broke, it seemed as though this was going to be an Oculus Rift exclusive, but available only on Steam. So it's like you buy it on Steam, but it's only available for the Oculus Rift. But we found out later that that's actually just an accident. Llama Soft, when they were making their Steam page, I guess somehow they got it worked out on there where it says requires an Oculus Rift headset, but apparently this is going to be for Vive and regular PC VR players, maybe Windows mixed reality and stuff like that. Steve, I believe you've tried Polybius at some point, right, on PlayStation VR. It's definitely a retro kind of a thing, but what's your thoughts on this finally coming to PC VR?
I remember seeing, it's Jeff Minter, right? That's the guy. He, somewhere there was a post that said they still haven't made money on it. I remember I heard that somewhere this week. It said like it's the game to this day, what, a year later or whatever, hasn't made any money. So I think it's good for them to go out and try and get it up, get it more access to everyone with Steam VR and Rift Vive, Windows MR, whatever. But I don't think that it's going to really catch too much attention. Like, to me, the game was interesting, but it was just it was one of those play it for 30 minutes and you're just kind of done with it. Like, it's a one time, and everyone listening to this and everyone in chat has played VR games that were really cool and they were great for 30 minutes to an hour, but then for whatever reasons, you're not really compelled the next day to turn it back on again. And I think, I think Polybius kind of falls in that camp.
Okay, and then a few other things we heard about on Wednesday, the Fallout 4 code. So if you signed up with Viveport, now the thing is you'd have to sign up, I think, for 3 months of Viveport to get this, and it was like I think it was $20 if you signed up for 3 months of Viveport. You would get a code for Fallout 4 VR. Any thoughts on that?
Fallout 4 is one of the best games you can play in VR. It's one of the biggest value games that you can get in VR in terms of hours per dollar spent. It's the exact opposite of most VR games. That's pretty typical in the Bethesda cycle anyway. They make these long-running games. I will say that it will require a lot of effort to get it dialed in, and if you're running on a GTX 960 or 1050, you maybe need to consider playing it. But other than that, for $20, it's worth picking up. If you don't have it, like, get it. It's worth having in your library, and it's nice to have that game there as a fallback, that you can kind of play between all of the other games that you want to get to. I just beat it about a month ago, and it came out last December, so it was my go-to game between reviewing other games and stuff, and I liked having that fallback, and now I'm going to be doing the same thing with Skyrim probably.
Okay, let me resize my trailer real quick here. Okay, the next tiny little thing I have is Angry Birds. Right now I have a little Angry Birds Magic Leap trailer running on the screen, but one of the things we found out on Wednesday is Angry Birds VR Arcade. And when this first got discovered, it was found on like a Facebook page or something. So everybody thought, oh, Angry Birds is coming to the Oculus Rift. Maybe it's like an Angry Birds VR Oculus Rift exclusive. And then we found out, no, it's actually the Facebook page for an arcade company that uses only HTC Vives for their arcade. And so it appears that Angry Birds is coming to VR arcades. Any excitement with that one?
A little bit, like, not too much. It's Angry Birds. Like, I'm kind of through with these mobile games, if it's a way that I'm in a spot where I can check it out, then yeah, I'll check it out. But otherwise, no. Like, what do you think? Are you excited for Angry Birds in VR?
Not really. I mean, I've seen, the Magic Leap one is kind of cool because it is using your backgrounds and everything. And I don't know, it could be fun. I hope it would be very inexpensive, like a $7.99 kind of a game, or $9.99 or something like that. Like, what is the game with the fruits? Fruit Ninja VR, right? Like a game like that, I can get into one of those games, but the price needs to be bite-sized, in my opinion. Like I could get into a lot of those games if they keep the price really small, and so you can just grab it. It's not that much money. You screw around with it for a while. Your kids might like it, type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so about to end the Wednesday discussion, but before we get to Thursday, did you ever try this thing called Dinner Party? It was the Betty and Barney Hill thing that was in this thing called Within. It's like a 360 video thing. Probably not. Okay, just
No,
wanted
yeah,
to...
I don't really get into the 360 videos because they're generally all crap. Like they don't, it's not a pleasurable experience.
Yeah, and this one was kind of crappy as well. I was hoping they some of them, they'll mix like 360 video with like pre-rendered backdrops and stuff. Like they'll kind of mix and match it, and some of those can be kind of cool. And when I saw the trailer, I thought it was like that, but it really wasn't like that. Okay, so let's move on to Thursday. Thursday, the big news, well, one of the big pieces of news on Thursday, a launch date for Beat Saber, PlayStation VR, baby. We've been waiting for this forever. I'm sure you've seen it on many of my shows, Steve, saying this has to be ready prior to Thanksgiving, because I'm hoping that people will take their PlayStation VRs to Thanksgiving, and fire up Beat Saber and get the whole Thanksgiving Day crowd playing Beat Saber and kind of spread that good joy. What do you think about November 20th?
I think it's good, and it's in time. Like I've said the same thing, and I don't know if I got it from you or we've said it in the past, but yes, that is a game that needs to be ready for Turkey Day, and I am very happy that the PlayStation VR owners will have a chance to play Beat Saber. Beat Saber is the perfect game, I think, to show people who don't have VR. It's a perfect game because it's fun. It shows off the advantages of VR well. It shows that, hey, this is what you can't do with a gamepad and do on your Xbox One. It shows it's accessible by everybody that can stand and that has two arms. Like it doesn't matter if you're 8 years old or if you're 60 years old, you can play Beat Saber and have fun with it. So I think it's a good game for the industry. I think it's good that it's coming to PlayStation VR. I think it's great that it's coming to PlayStation VR in time to showcase to more people. And I think it makes PlayStation VR, along with all the other things, including the back catalog, I think it gives them a very impressive holiday run up, even though there isn't one, November game that is like Resident Evil 7 big or Fallout or Skyrim big. It's the collection of what they do have, Astrobot and all that, I think gives them a good solid lineup.
Gary's in chat, and when I said, Beat Saber coming to PSVR, he's like, yes, can't wait. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping they would have a little demo too, because then if they had a demo for just one song, then everybody could show it off, where if you got to buy it, then you have to buy the game. But yeah, so we'll have to see what happens with that. Let's see.
Do you think so? There was some controversy with that in that the game is coming with I'd have to read more.
5 extra songs, I think.
Well, but then they call it a campaign too. Yeah. Like, I don't know what that means exactly. I have to read more about it. But in either case, there was the controversy. A lot of PC VR Beat Saber owners, and to a degree, I understand, were upset because PlayStation is getting some exclusive content and modes when the PC version of the game is still in early access. And to me, that game shouldn't even be in early access. They should have just released it as is and done anything future as DLC. But in either case, do you think that any of the PC VR people were sort of right in sort of being a little pissed off that PlayStation VR Beat Saber is getting some content that they're not getting? Since initially Beat Games has come out and said, hey, this new campaign mode and practice mode is going to come to PC VR in a relatively soon update, but then the 5 extra songs would be a little further down the road. Do you think that there's anything worth being upset about if you're a huge PC Beat Saber fan like Gary?
Yeah, no, I don't think. I mean, here's my thought process on that. I mean, technically, yeah, you can kind of be a little bit pissed off and say, hey, you're doing all this stuff for PlayStation VR. Take care of what you already got first. I understand that argument. But in the case of Beat Saber, the PC VR version is butter smooth. It's polished. It works great. This is a little bit different than, I can give you an example. Okay, there's this company called Sin Studio that has a number of VR games, and they brought a bunch of them to PlayStation VR, and they have a bunch that's on PC VR. And I'm trying to think of what are the names of some of the games that they have, but it's SINN Studio. Have a game called The Wraith, right, which is on PC VR, and apparently, if I remember correctly, or it might have been one of their other games, it has like major performance issue problems. And then here the developer is making a PlayStation VR version now, in that and you know, trying to hype up the PlayStation VR version and doing an AMA on the PSVR subreddit and stuff like that. In that kind of a scenario, yeah, I kind of have a problem with that, because if you have a problem with your PC VR version where it's not even running right, then yeah, you probably shouldn't be moonlighting on the PSVR. But in the case of Beat Saber, like, the game runs flawlessly. It works very well. I understand they want all that extra content as well, but I think, you know, patience is a virtue, right? It's eventually going to come, you know?
Yeah, I think you know, one other thing. PD says 2 days after PSVR launch, the PC Beat Saber community will have already modded the new songs. There is nothing to complain about. And PD buddy, I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you there, because even though someone may do that, and I do expect them to take a stab at it, unless they go through and they have the PlayStation version side by side and are somehow able to copy the beat map 1-to-1, most of the PC VR modded songs I play are trash, and it's because it's because the community is trying to turn it into an esport. Like it's all expert and expert plus, and it's not very fun because they're just making it hard for the sake of being hard. There are a couple good modded songs where someone seems to know what they're doing. So even though, to your point, even though someone will take and rip the audio and create a PC version of these 5 new Beat Saber tracks, I don't think they're going to be any good. And that's just kind of the way I'm like, because it's just going to be expert plus trash. And not that I can play on expert and expert plus, but it's just, it doesn't mean it's fun. And that's why I'm not really big on the modded community to this point. There's a few good tracks. I'm not saying there's none, but most of them I'm not enjoying like I am the 10 native tracks.
Okay, another big news story that we had, I believe this is Thursday that I'm talking about, is Oculus Rift. The price dropped to $350 on Amazon and Best Buy, and this is kind of leading up to Black Friday, I guess. So it's probably going to stay this price for a couple of weeks, I'm imagining. Do you believe this $50 drop is enough to kind of move the needle at all, or is it just going to get those fence sitters that were probably about to buy it anyway, and this just gives them that extra push? What's your thoughts?
Your audio broke up for me for a second. What product are we talking about that's $50 off?
Oh, the Oculus Rift dropped to $350. Yeah.
Yeah, I think obviously lower prices are good. The Rift has been $350 several times. It was $350 a couple months ago with the Marvel United Powers bundle. So yeah, I'm all for lower prices, lower barriers, get more people to buy it. Hopefully, I want to see them actually push it one step further and take it to $299. You know, let's push harder because. You know, that's what we should be aiming for. So good news. Speaking of Oculus Rift, I want to give a little small shout out to Oculus support. My Rift a couple weeks ago developed the left audio issue where the headphone stops working due to the flex cable on the inside. And I fixed it by, you know, adding a little wire, and there's information out there how to do that. But my concern is that once that flex cable was torn, that it was going to continue to stretch and tear more and more, that it would eventually turn off the LEDs in the back for tracking. So I got with Oculus support. I'm out of warranty. I've had my Rift for well over a year, and said, look, this is a common issue, and we got to stand by this. And they did. They sent me a new Rift, not a brand new Rift. It comes from their service center, which coincidentally turns out to be in Louisville. So I sent them my Rift on Wednesday and got it back on Friday, and got the other one back on Friday. When I saw the address from the UPS prepaid label, I was like, man, I can just go drop this off. It's like 5 minutes. But then I didn't, because I was worried about having a tracking history showing that I actually did mail the thing to them and all that. But yeah, they stood by it. So just a little shout out to Oculus support. And if you haven't had that issue yet, be prepared. You're probably gonna have the issue. And if you don't let a lot of people play with your Rift, if you're really the only user, you can put some tape on it to stop that stretching. So just a little public service announcement.
Yeah, me and Paradise have both been having a problem with doing snap turning in a couple of different games, where on our right controllers we can only snap turn to the right, and it's very hard to snap turn to the left. We noticed this in Witching Tower VR, and we also noticed it in Transpose. And I don't know if that was just those games, if it's some kind of software thing, or if maybe our controllers are about to have a problem. But yeah, that's one of the things to concern ourselves with. Okay, let's see, what else did I want to mention here? Well, you know what? On the VR365 screen, I have 10 Hearts, this trailer running. And I believe you had a chance to play this. What was your thoughts on 10 Hearts? Looks like a pretty good Lemming style game.
Yeah, it was. It's real cute. I don't know if I want to lay out the whole game, but basically it's a Lemming style game. You open a box, and the little toy soldiers, they need to go from point A to point B, and you manipulate the environment, their path, which is usually with these little various shaped blocks and such. It's well executed. It's fun. It's cute. There's really not a lot of bad things to say about it, other than it's a Lemming style game, and you have to want to play that. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm sitting here and I'm playing this game, like, I can't say anything bad about this game. It's better than I thought it would be. It's the polished execution's right on point. There's really nothing that I can ding it. But I just don't really like those kinds of games, though, so I'm not real compelled to go back in and play it. But if you like those kinds of games, like, without question, I can wholeheartedly recommend it. Like, there's really nothing bad to say about it, because I thought the execution and everything was pretty spot on.
Honestly, I'm kind of amazed. Like, when I saw the price of it, $20, because it has a lot of polish, man. It, like, again, same thing for me. This is not my style of game. Like, when I'm thinking of the genres that I'm into, like, Lemmings is way the hell down there. But it's a great quality game. I mean, the visuals are good, the sound effects are good. And then also, like, when I was first in it at the very beginning, you start off at that one table, and I kind of thought it was just going to be that. Like, they would just put you at these different tables. But you have teleportation, you got these bigger rooms, you're going over to different parts of the rooms, grabbing this, and it almost becomes, I didn't get super far into it, but it seems like it can become one of these very hectic games where you're like teleporting over here, grabbing this block, coming back, putting the block here. Oh no, now the little soldiers are going over there. I got to grab the block, get over here, put this block here, kind of like one of those hectic things. But I was surprised by the price.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to Friday. And so the big news on Friday, well, actually there was a couple of interesting news things that popped off on Friday, but Windlands 2 is coming to Steam on November 15th. This is pretty big news, because when Windlands 2 first hit the Oculus Rift as an exclusive, at that time, I think we had heard that it wasn't going to hit any place else until possibly like January. And here it is. Windlands 2 is hitting in a matter of days. This next week it comes out. I know that you've enjoyed Windlands 2, right, on your Oculus Rift. Do you feel like now that it's coming over to Steam, and Vive players can grab it natively. But of course, we do have the political issues that go on with this. So some people, they kind of want to penalize these developers for taking that sweet Oculus nectar. What's your thoughts on that?
That's not really my thing. Like Windlands 2 is a good game. You should have Windlands 2. If you're a fan of VR, it is a good game that you're probably going to enjoy. Most people are going to enjoy Windlands 2. I am not a fan of begrudging a business that does what they need to do to make their financials solvent. Like, you know, you got so many in the community that sit there and say, well, exclusives hurt VR. I don't think they do when you consider the business ramifications and the financial outlay that these companies have to put out and the risk that they're taking. If VR was to get as big as, you know, PlayStation, Xbox, Tomb Raider, and, you know, all these mainstream gaming, if they get that big, then you can make the argument that exclusives may hurt more than they help. But in a realm of someone taking upfront money when the game may not be made at all without it, because we're not talking about exclusives stopping some people from buying it. We're talking exclusives that no one would get to play it. The game may not exist at all. I don't see how you could be a fan of VR and want it to succeed and be mad at that. So I don't begrudge any developer that does what they need to do for their business so that they can keep making content. That's the biggest problem that VR has right now, in my opinion. We can talk about field of view, we can talk about resolution, comfort, wireless, yada, yada, yada. The biggest issue stopping people from taking and buying VR en masse, the number one issue, not that those other things aren't issues, but the number one issue is content. Fallout, Skyrim, and Resident Evil 7 are only going to go so far. These ports, as much as I love them, Borderlands 2 might be awesome, it's only going to go so far. So when a developer makes a good game and they have to, I don't care whose money they have to take, rather they can take Mark Cuban's money and make the game exclusive to the Dallas Mavericks for a month. I don't care. Like do what you can to keep making content. That content is what we need. We need developers to get experience, and we need games to keep coming out. So if you're one of those people that begrudge the developers of Windlands, SciTech, is that who it is?
Yeah.
If you're one of the people that begrudge them for what they did and won't buy their game, you are harming VR more than you think you're helping it, for sure. Now that the game's coming to Steam, go buy it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I think part of the whole thing is like, it's like when the Rift and the Vive first came out, it really was like two separate camps of people, you know, way back in April and like late March and April of 2016. You really did have these two camps. And I was actually in the Vive camp. I was on the Vive subreddit. And I remember the Oculus people, and you know, the Oculus people would come in and then they would cause havoc on the Vive subreddit, and Vive people would cause havoc over there, and it really got into this us versus them thing, and I think a lot of people, they held on to that over these years, you know, over all these years they've held on to that. And so anytime you have these exclusives, people tend to try to penalize them, which, yeah, I've always said, look, unless you've got a major stock investment in any of these companies, we're in-level consumers. It's the other complaint I say. We're in-level consumers. This is not our fight. You know what I mean? We're just here to enjoy the content. Let's not worry about the contracts that are signed and all of that. You know, let's just enjoy this stuff. Okay, another big story that hit on...
Though, one thing, Conrad Lawrence in chat says, the Windlands developer also threatened legal action against a YouTuber who was teaching VR development. I am not aware of that situation, but assuming that it's true, I wouldn't condone that, just because I'm not going to think that they did wrong taking Oculus money to have an exclusive, timed exclusive. They shouldn't be harming, unless there was some divulsion of intellectual property or something like that. I don't want to say that I stand behind every single thing SciTech has ever done and ever will do, but just that one particular issue. So I wanted to clarify that.
No, you're their legal counsel, Steve. You're responsible. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, speaking to what Conrad Lawrence is talking about, like, sometimes things like this will pop up in chat, and I can't really comment on it because I don't know about it. So it's like, okay, that's interesting, but I'd have to really know the insides of it. But, you know, a news story that did hit, I believe this was Friday, is Shadow VR. So did you see this? Like, when this first hit, a lot of people thought, oh, this is a new HTC Vive product, this new standalone. It's called Shadow VR. It's 300. I guess it's actually supposed to be available today. Today's November 11th. It's supposed to be available worldwide on November 11th for $399. And it's true. 6 degrees of freedom on your head, 6 degrees of freedom in your hands with PlayStation Move looking style controllers that are tracked via ray tracing, which I don't know how that works. But what we did find out is actually this is not like a HTC Vive product. What it is, it's a Chinese company called Shadow Creator, and they've licensed Vive Wave, the Vive Wave platform. And so Vive Port is going to be on the Shadow VR headsets. And it does have a Snapdragon 835, just like the Oculus Quest. So conceivably, somebody could design an Oculus Quest game and be able to port it to Shadow VR at some point in time. But the big hype when this first hit was, hey, why wait another 8 or 9 months for the Quest when you can get Shadow VR right now? What did you hear about this? What did you think about Shadow VR?
I looked at it loosely. Like I didn't, you know, as anyone that's watched VR Roundtable or listened to VR Roundtable knows, I'm the resident mobile hater. I don't like. I'm not so convinced that mobile is going to be a product for me. So with that reduced enthusiasm, my enthusiasm and tracking the news and really diving into a new product is subdued compared to something that I'm excited about. So the price is good. You know, this may be a good way for a community to thrive with this product. I still think the Quest is going to be better. I think the Quest is going to be better supported, at least here in the West and in Western Europe. I don't think that this Shadow product is going to really be a serious contender in that way. We tend to focus so much on hardware and say, okay, they both check these boxes, and you know, same Snapdragon 835, same this, same that. But in reality, the support and the marketing and all that stuff really is what carries a product, you know, more, and that's why you may have such a huge difference between the Quest and this unit. So not too excited about it. It's cool. The only thing I'll say is I'm glad, you know, steps are moving forward. People are still making things, and that VR, you know, isn't, you know, people aren't saying, hey, we can't afford to make a headset, or we shouldn't make a headset because there's no market for it. Anyone that makes hardware is my friend, even if I don't like it.
I mean, it's designed for the Chinese market, because see, here in China, like Facebook is like verboten, right? Like China don't like Facebook, so you don't have no Oculus in China. No Oculus for you. Okay, so getting to stuff that happened yesterday. So Saturdays, normally not a lot of news on Saturdays, but we actually had quite a bit of news. So one of the things I was talking about yesterday, Red Matter. It's available right now. It was actually available yesterday on Steam. We had heard previously that Red Matter was coming to Steam, and it is available. I believe it's $24.99 is the regular price, but I think it has like a little 10% discount, so you know, $22 or whatever for Red Matter. Were you a big fan of Red Matter on Oculus?
I thought it was pretty good. I never went back to complete it. But yeah, I would say I'm a fan. I like the graphic aesthetic. I like the accessibility. It's a puzzle game, but the puzzles weren't too hard. The performance was really good. You know, the developer seems to know what they're doing in that realm. So yeah, I would say I'm a fan of Red Matter, even though I haven't completed it yet. And I think that speaks more to what I'm doing, playing all these games and all that, than it does about the game. If I wasn't podcasting and reviewing a bunch of games and getting a bunch of headsets and stuff, like I would have beat and completed Red Matter.
It's pretty rare that I've completed a game that Steve hasn't. I've actually completed Red Matter, so I got one on Steve. Yeah, I'm a fan of this because, you know, when I had my my 970, here's a game, graphics perfect. I mean, crystal clear, really good graphics, really good sound, and it ran smooth as can be, and that was back on my 970. It just worked great. I'm assuming the Steam version is very similar. Okay, another thing I mentioned, you know, From Other Suns is having a free weekend, although today is the last day. So if you want to try to jump in there and check that out, you can. Zero Caliber officially released, and it's priced at $25, but it also has that little launch discount, so it's like $22.50 or whatever it is. Any thoughts on Zero Caliber, like playing that demo and everything? Do you have any excitement to try to grab that full game? Or, I mean, there's so many different games like this, right? War Dust and all these other ones.
That's where I'm at. I'm personally not going to pick up Zero Caliber. The dev may send us a key or something, but like I have reached saturation with these online VR shooters, and I don't really have room in my diet of VR content to add more to it. So for me, it's going to be a pass. But that's really not to speak anything bad. I think the game has tons of potential, and I think if you are a person that feast on only online shooting VR games, then you should add this to your arsenal of content, no question.
Did you ever play Firewall Zero Hour? I couldn't remember if you played that or not. You did?
Yep.
Okay. Did you end up like selling it, or did you get a physical copy? I don't know, or did you get the digital?
No, I got it digital.
Okay. Did you play it I mean, did you like play it for a while and you never go back to it, kind of thing? Or?
I probably put 4 or 5 hours into it. So yeah, for me, I played it a lot. But you know, did I get my money's worth? Probably not. But again, it like with Red Matter, it goes back more to that we're just playing so much and stuff that I don't have the time. Like I could see myself having Firewall Zero be in my regular rotation. In fact, if I wanted to play a online shooter, my top choices are Firewall Zero Hour and Pavlov.
Okay, well, why don't we move now to the big Steam VR, or the big Valve secret mystery HMD kerfuffle. We just had the Oculus kerfuffle a few weeks back here, and so I've got on the screen all these different images from this mystery HMD, and I talked about it extensively yesterday. I mean, that was pretty much my entire show yesterday was all about this, but I don't have Steve's thoughts on it. So Steve, I'll just kind of wrap up what we saw here. So basically we've seen like four pictures basically is what we had. 4 pictures, high resolution pictures of what appears to be an area where its malfunctioning headsets are set. And we see pictures of like 8 headsets lined up, 4 headsets lined up. You can see that there's 2 cameras on the bottom. We're not sure exactly what that's about. There's a strange thing in the middle that you can possibly snap something into. The lenses look a lot bigger than your typical HMD lenses would be with that size of a headset, so it seems to suggest a bigger FOV. And then, of course, there's these really big headphone style things that are on the side of each of these headsets. And the foam padding in the back seems absolutely identical to the foam padding that is on the Knuckles EV3. So everybody saw all of this stuff, and it's like, oh my God, megaton announcement. There is a brand new Steam VR headset. Valve is making their own headset. Oh my God, what is going on here? So Steve, I mean, when you first saw this, like, what were your reactions to all of this?
Well, I mean, when I first saw it, it was like, holy crap. Like, and then once I paid attention to it a little bit, I was subdued a little bit, right? Like, first of all, it's completely legit. This is not a fabricated leak. This isn't someone who just, took an HTC Vive and photoshopped a circuit board on the front of it. And, these headsets are assembled and they're somewhere, or at least they were back in July. So it's legit to the extent that multiple headsets, these prototypes that they are, have been made. I want to tamper everyone's hype and enthusiasm. Well, hype at least, maybe not enthusiasm. to say that this isn't an announced product. Valve hasn't come out and said, "Hey, we have an HMD that you're going to be able to buy it in spring of 2019 or something." I want to remind everybody that we've seen a more finished product from LG, and to this day, it's never been released. So we don't know to what extent that this product is done. We don't know to what extent that Valve is planning to actually release it. It's still very early in that sense. Now, that being said, I do expect Valve to release, they've really gone this far. I do expect them to release this headset. I do expect it to exist. But I don't want to get too overexcited and assume that I'm going to be using this headset anytime in the relative near future. About the leak itself, go ahead. Well, I was going to say about the leak itself, the one things that I really, really like is the big lenses. Now, having spent time in the Odyssey Plus and going back and forth and paying a lot of attention to the minuscule details, the bigger the lens, the better, in my opinion. And that's not just for a field of view issue. The bigger the lens, the theory, the bigger the sweet spot is probably going to be. The less you're going to have edge distortion. Like if you're making if anybody on this live stream is making a VR headset, get the biggest damn lenses you can get in there. Big fan of that. Downside is I saw the Fresnel grooves. I am over Fresnel grooves. It has been something that's been popping back up again for me with the Odyssey Plus. Prior to picking up the Odyssey Plus, I had a Vive, a Go, and a PlayStation VR, all of which coincidentally do not have groove or obvious grooves in the Fresnel, or the lenses don't have Fresnel at all. And it just sucks seeing them again. We got to get away from these grooves. And honestly, Valve or whomever, they need to reverse engineer some of Oculus's lenses from the Go, or borrow something from PlayStation VR. We need to mimic those people who are doing better with the lenses. One thing I was reading on Reddit is the display board that is at least shown in these images may not support a high enough resolution. So we have a sort of a conflict between some of these leaks. Upload says they have a source, and then I think is it the Valve News Network, or yeah, they claim to have a source. And I'm reading, and again, I'm just piecing everything together. I don't have a source myself, but there's information out there suggesting that one source is saying that this headset is 135-degree field of view at a Vive Pro-ish resolution. Another headset or another source is saying 150-degree field of view. We need to the big issue there is having enough GPU to drive the headset without taking a step down in pixel density from the existing Vive or the existing Vive Pro even. If the field of view gets too big, but they keep the resolution the same, for example, as a Vive Pro, then we're going to have a reduction in pixels per degree, a reduction in angular resolution. And that will actually be a lower fidelity image that you're seeing. So I actually hope both of those rumors aren't, or both of those sources are wrong, and that they got their wires crossed somewhere. We'll have to see where that goes. But all in all, to sum it up, like, I'm very excited. Probably not going to touch on everything today. Maybe we can, but the headphones are being theorized that they may have some sort of tactile haptics in them. So maybe if you get punched in the side of your head or something, you'll feel something. That could be pretty cool and pretty unique to this headset. So and then, so I guess sort of attached to this leak is this expectation that there is a Half-Life exclusive VR game. And I don't think it's Half-Life 3, but people are saying a Half-Life prequel. Or I will also say that I Am Rut says Steve sounds like he's presenting to a board of directors. I don't normally present to the board, so it's good to know that whenever I do, my shit will be in row. But the forgot I was saying until he interrupted me with his words. The game, like, I don't think it's going to be Half-Life 3. I almost
wait
wonder
a minute. Upload VR is like saying straight up, this is a prequel to Half-Life. This is a Half-Life 2 VR prequel or something like they're that's on the Upload VR website. You go to Upload VR, it says Half-Life 2. Like it's confirmed, right? No, no, but it's funny.
I think it's very plausible that we have a Half-Life VR game, whether it be some standalone prequel, which I think that would be super cool. I don't think it's going to be Half-Life 3, which is my point. I also think it's possible, like we haven't heard squat out of that Half-Life 2 VR mod. We know that Valve greenlit it or whatever that means. Like I don't track all that stuff too closely, but I almost wonder if Valve kind of just stepped in with those guys and have kind of helped develop that, and that might be what releases with this headset. I do think that they will try to bundle something Half-Life with this. I think there's strong enough rumors to suggest that, but you know, and also I don't see them saying it's exclusive to this headset only. Like I imagine that would start like, you know, Steam VR fan meltdown if Half-Life, whatever the Half-Life game is, was exclusive to this headset and those with their Vives couldn't play it. I almost wish that happens just so I can see the meltdown.
Well, I think it's gonna, like, whatever these 3 Valve games, they're gonna be exclusive to VR. I don't think there's going to be a flat version because, see, Valve is all about, like, they're trying to, you know, Gabe talked about Nintendo, and they talked about making Super Mario 64, and they were, like, making the Nintendo 64 and Super Mario 64 and the controller all at the same time. And I don't think they're going to, I don't think they would make a game that would be able to work in flat at all. Like,
no, what I'm saying, this Half-Life game being exclusive to this headset, as in you couldn't play it on your Vive. Like some people are thinking that that's a possibility, and what I'm saying is I don't see that. Like I could only imagine the meltdown from all the Vive and Vive Pro, and to a degree the Rift owners, although they couldn't complain too hard, that they couldn't play a Valve Half-Life game made for VR. Like that would just be the biggest meltdown ever. And that's what I said. I almost want to see that happen just for the entertainment value of it.
Yeah. Hey, Simon Jones is saying, Steve, which product is going to be in your hands first, the Pimax 5K Plus or a new HMD from Valve?
The fact that I can't answer that with any degree of confidence speaks a lot about how I feel, how quick I'm going to get my Pimax. I don't think I initially said I might get it February. I'm now thinking April, which it's fine. You know, it is what it is. I'm in line for one. So, yeah.
But what do you think about, like, one of the things Upload VR, I think, was kind of insinuating is that there's going to be a bundle that you're going to have this headset, you're going to have the Knuckles controllers, you're going to have the 2.0 base station, and you're going to have a physical copy. You're going to have a code probably for Half-Life 2, the prequel.
Yeah, and that's cool. Like I've been saying for a long time, I don't understand why Knuckles aren't out there. Like they've been finished enough. Like the EV2 to EV3 changes were so subtle. Like they didn't have to like send those out and make any noise about how subtle it was. The EV1 to EV2 change, that was pretty substantial. But the EV2 looked pretty done. That gives me pause here, and that's kind of why I wanted to tamper hype on this headset, is because if they play a sort of development cycle with this headset as they've done with Knuckles, this is a 2020, 2021 product and not a 2019 product. So I'm hoping it's wrong. I'm hoping that Valve are somehow different with this HMD, and that they are going to announce it soon and release it relatively shortly after that. And to fuel the speculation, and let's be clear that this is all speculation. I don't have a source at Valve. I myself am not a contractor for Valve. Anthony isn't either. Gary, Chris, none of us are on the inside, right? So this is all speculation. We're responding to what we're seeing out in the news and in the VR community. But I wonder, while with my speculative hat on, I'm wondering if this didn't in some way influence Oculus's / Facebook's recent decisions with, you know, if this headset is on the horizon from Valve, did Oculus somehow become aware of it? You know, because they're going to have inter-industry contacts. And did they somehow become aware of it and say, oh, we need to get a product out next year to compete with this? Because otherwise, a Valve HMD in 2019 is going to be very advantageous over a 2016 Oculus Rift. So I'm just curious if, and you can give me your thoughts on it. Did any of this being in existence, this Valve HMD, somehow influence Oculus, do you think?
So that kerfuffle and this kerfuffle, they combined. No, just kidding. Yeah, I don't know. I've never thought of it from that angle. But you know what? I have a question for you, Steve. But before we get to that question, I just want to ask everybody, if you're watching this right now, take a pause for a second and hit that like button. And also go ahead and subscribe. If you're watching this on VR365, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We absolutely appreciate it. And if you're watching this on VR Roundtable, same exact thing, man. Tickle that like button, subscribe. I got to do this more. I have a producer, Steve, I have this like producer guy in the background that's helping me out, Jim Hall. And he's like, you got to do some of this stuff, Anthony. You got to keep reminding these people, you know, so I got to start doing this. But okay, so the question I wanted to get to you, so everybody's hit the like button, right? And everybody's subscribed. Okay, now we can move forward. The question I have for Steve is, what the hell is the opening on the front? You got there's like 5 different possibilities, right? There's leap motion is a possibility. It could be a battery is a possibility. It could be some kind of upgrade path. Like, what if this is a hybrid, a standalone hybrid PCVR headset / standalone, and you could upgrade the chip? You know, you could add a new Snapdragon to the front of it. What could that thing be? Or maybe it's none of the above, and maybe this is just a development thing that happens to have a thing on the front of it that has nothing to do with anything. What are your thoughts on that strange opening?
That opening looks like it's very convenient to get to that printed circuit board. And like without knowing anything, like it could be any of those things you mentioned, and that would be cool. I'm least inclined to think it has anything to do with leap motion, but it could be any of those. My thought is that this is a prototype that they're using in their facilities, and they're testing and they're making changes, that opening could just be a way for them to get to that daughter board and swap it out, and as they upgrade the board, right, without having to take the whole headset apart that way. Like that would be my guess, just from a nerdy engineering with a manufacturing background sort of take on it. I'm going to go with nothing that we care about, that it's just the prototype.
Cyan VR says the opening is for smell-o-vision. And Conrad Lawrence says it's for the Rumble Pack. And you know what's really hilarious, on the Vive subreddit where everybody was talking about this one guy said that's where the game cartridges go. That's where the game cartridges snap in. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. I thought, yeah, if it was Nintendo, I wouldn't put it past them. The game cartridges snap right in there. And I had this crazy, wild theory that it's going to be an LCD screen so that people can see your eyeballs from the outside. How about that one?
That would be cool, actually.
Yeah. Okay, well, do you want to move away now from this mystery HMD, and we could talk a little Project Cars 2, which I know that's something you've been playing. Sure. I played it very briefly last night. Let me go ahead and grab my Project Cars 2 trailer, since we're going to talk about that real quick. If I can find it here. Project Cars 2. Here we go. Okay. You know, it's weird. Every time I like start using my mouse or like going through any of my folders, sometimes our audio gets screwed up. I don't know if it's an NDI thing. Okay, so Steve, so recently you were able to get Project Cars 2. It was on sale, a really good deal. And you've been playing this a little bit, so why don't you go ahead and give us your thoughts?
Well, I can't give anybody thoughts from a known racing sim person. Like that's not me. I'm a VR fan. I like cars as much as the next guy. I used to own a BMW. Like I know how to work on them to a degree. Like you know, that's the mechanical side of me, I guess. So I think it's cool, but I'm not a race car. Like I don't watch NASCAR or F1. I don't go to the races, although I have been. So I want to say that like anything that I'm going to say about Project Cars is from the perspective of a VR gamer. of all the racing games that I've tried, Assetto Corsa, Project Cars 1, Project Cars 2, and Drive Club on PlayStation VR, and also tried the horrible Gran Turismo on PlayStation VR. What I was looking for in a racing game, like of all of those games, up until playing Project Cars 2, which I know is a little bit old now, Drive Club was my favorite because of friction. I could plug in my Logitech and throw the headset on, and I could just play. And you know, when I would try on PC VR, like particularly with Assetto Corsa, like there was like you have to get out of the headset and then go back in, and like it was just a lot of work just to race a car. Project Cars 2, when I tried it last week, it was on sale for $20. So I thought that was a good price. When I tried it, it was like Drive Club in terms of friction, but for PlayStation but for PC VR. And, you know, so I had the advantages of the higher resolution. I had the advantages of my computer that just had higher fidelity than the PlayStation does. And I could just stay in VR and I could race after race after race. And I just thought the execution was real good. Also, you know, because again, I keep talking about this Odyssey Plus that I've been testing out, is I think on the Odyssey Plus, this looks really good. And it just kind of motivated me to play it a lot. And I think Project Cars 2 runs, from a performance perspective, runs surprisingly better than I would have anticipated. I hear a lot about the people who play racing sims a lot, and they really, really get deep into that rabbit hole. And they talk a lot about how performance isn't very good, like not about Project Cars, but you know, games where they have to reduce the number of cars on the track because the hardware isn't there to support it. I found with Project Cars 2, keeping everything sort of default on the Samsung Odyssey Plus on a 1080 Ti, that I could run it at 250% super sampling in Steam VR, and it held 90 frames all day. To me, that caught me by surprise, as I was expecting a lot of performance issues from a high fidelity racer, and I didn't have any performance issues. It was butter smooth, and for that, I thought it was awesome. No friction, you can race, it's butter smooth, and they have some point-to-point tracks. And what I mean by a point-to-point track is you have the tracks where it's a you know, like Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it's a loop. You know, you're going around, you do laps. But Drive Club was really good about having where you drive the coastline and you're not doing laps. You know, it's a scenic route. And Project Cars, although they have mostly tracks, they have a few point-to-point races that you can do, and I really like those a lot as well. So Project Cars, in terms of its VR execution, really surprised me, and I recommend it.
Okay, a question though. So I got into this last night as well. Now, I only played this for maybe 25 minutes. I tried 2 different cars, and I was on 2 different tracks, and I was racing around, and I liked it. It was good. Everything that you say, I can kind of echo all those sentiments. But one of the things I did notice, like I did notice screen door. I didn't have my super sampling cranked quite like you had yours. But I did notice quite a bit of screen door effect. And as I was driving along these tracks, I was actually thinking of you and your Odyssey Plus. And I was like, man, I wonder if this could be one of the few games where you really would want to have an Odyssey Plus. Like, is there any kind of thoughts along those lines? Because I know ultimately you're kind of disappointed with the Odyssey Plus overall. Like you've kind of said that maybe, yeah, you know, you could let it go pretty much. But would this be maybe one of the few games where it would be a bonus to have an Odyssey Plus for a game like this?
Yeah, I ordered an OG Odyssey, and I'm pretty sure I like what Windows MR is doing enough. I like having the higher resolution. So I've decided that I was probably going to keep the Odyssey Plus, but I was still the softness of the anti-SDE filter. Like it's a very hit and miss. Like in one moment you'll be like, man, this looks awesome. And then on another moment you'll be like, I don't like this. I'd rather have the more crisp visuals. So to help me sort of get comfortable in the skin of keeping that headset, I ordered an OG Odyssey from Amazon that has a nice long return window. Pro, and I'm going to keep one of the two. So I'm not gaming anything per se, but to be comfortable, I have to compare it to the OG Odyssey, and I ultimately have to decide, because some of what I'm seeing with the Odyssey Plus is just the increased resolution over the Rift anyway. And some of what I'm seeing is the better vibrant, like, the Rift is sort of subdued in its brightness and in its color saturations. So, some of that, all that is what I'm getting with the Odyssey Plus over the Rift. So I feel like doing an OG Odyssey and an Odyssey Plus comparison will really help me decide and kind of filter out the noise on the anti-SDE. So I should actually get that headset delivered today. Amazon is the awesome Sunday deliveries. Yeah, I'll probably be on next week. I'll have more comments on the Odyssey Plus relative to the OG Odyssey, and I'm going to keep calling it OG because OG is just cool. And I'll be able to, I know a lot of people were curious about, how does it compare to the original Odyssey or to a Vive Pro, and I'll be able to make that comparison. And Project Cars is going to be probably one of the key games I make that screen comparison with. Because it's so easy to get in and out of. I can swap those headsets real quick. I don't have to worry about tracking. I don't have to it'll just be nice in that way. So stay tuned.
Since getting your Odyssey Plus, have you set that headset down for like a day or two and been back in your Rift for a day or two? Because I'm just wondering, like, it's funny because we did that one episode where, it was the live Q&A and all that, where you were talking about the Odyssey Plus. And I don't know why, but ever since that episode, every VR game that I've played since then, I see this screen door like crazy. And I'm like, what is going on here? I only talked about screen door for one day, and now all I can see is a screen door. And I'm just wondering, like, if you went back to your Rift, is it like, wow, look at this screen door?
So first of all, like, remember that the Rift is actually much better than the Vive when it comes to screen door. So like, the Vive, not the Vive Pro. I forcibly couldn't play my Rift because I was doing the whole RMA thing for 3 days. And for, I think, 2 days before sending it off, I didn't use my Rift. So I at least went 5-6 days, maybe even longer, without touching my Rift. And yeah, like, as soon as I get in my Rift, I actually feel the resolution more than I thought. I obviously noticed the screen door. It's very obvious. But again, I'm dealing with the muted colors and the less brightness. So it's hard to take in all these variables and the changes to sort of see how that pans out. But yes, going back to the Rift, it's very similar. It's not this huge, massive, like, night and day, like I want to throw it in the trash difference. But it's like going from an Oculus Go to an Oculus Rift. Like, when you put the Go on, you don't necessarily notice it, but when you step back to the Rift, you notice it. And I would say it stands out even more than going to PlayStation VR. With the PlayStation VR, I guess, for owning it for the 2 years that I've owned it, like, every time I put that headset on, I know what to expect, so I'm not surprised by anything. Whereas I haven't had that contrast necessarily on the PC VR side for quite a while. So yeah, you notice it going back to the Rift. To answer your question in a long roundabout way.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, like, when I got my Oculus Go and was using that for a while, and then you go back and you're like, wow, I'm really seeing a lot of God rays now, because the Go does such a good job with the God rays. I happen to have the Wrench trailer on my screen right now. Did you happen to touch that demo at all? It was... Oh, you didn't get a chance? Okay. I think it's kind of interesting from the standpoint that I don't know of another demo, on the Oculus Rift. Like, this is the first demo I've ever seen on Oculus Rift, because normally they don't have demos. What they do is they do the free weekend thing, kind of like From Other Suns is doing a free weekend right now. And I'm really hoping that maybe Oculus has figured something out here and that this is going to pave the way for more demos to come. I mean, I love the free weekends. It's great, but not every developer publisher is going to want to do a free weekend like that, depending on what type of game they have. I'm not a car guy at all, but it is very clean and crisp and very well done. So you should probably check that out when you have 10 minutes one day. Yep. Anything else you want to bring up, or any games you want to talk about, or anything? We got a little bit of time if you wanted to get into
well, have you talked about Eclipse for Go.
No. Did you get a chance to play that?
Yep, yep.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. I'll go ahead and throw that trailer on. Yeah, go ahead and talk about that.
Okay.
I gotta find my
So
trailer.
the well, I'm drawing a blank here when you're live. Sometimes that happens. But what's the full name of the game? I just got it.
Eclipse Edge of Light, I think.
All
Yeah,
right,
Eclipse
I
Edge of
wanted to
Light.
get that because I just wrote Eclipse here on my side. But Eclipse Edge of Light is a daydream game that came out last year, maybe a little more than a year ago. And it was ported to Gear VR and Oculus Go. So all of us that don't have Daydream was able to play the game. And for a lot of people, it became one of the must-have Oculus Go games. And I was hearing a lot of hype all week about it, and I didn't have a chance to play it. I was busy, and I kept hearing a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people were putting up Let's Plays of it, and I knew that I wanted to play the game because it was getting all this attention for a reason. Having spent about an hour with it, I would say that the attention it's gotten is warranted. It is pretty impressive for a mobile VR game. The controls, like so it's the best I can describe it is a sort of an adventure game. I haven't seen any combat, so you're solving very light puzzles. But I'd say more than anything, at least to this point that I've saw, is it's more about navigating the environment. You have this jet booster pack thing. But it's actually it's a relatively complex game that somehow still is able to use the 3 degree of freedom Oculus Go controller. You don't need a gamepad. In fact, I don't even think you can use a gamepad with this game. So one of the concerns with an Oculus Go or anything that's 3 degrees of freedom is that, will you really be able to use that controller in any kind of meaningful way in a game? And I still think it's a design constraint, but I think the developer has done pretty good with that constraint, and they pulled it off. Like the controls work pretty well. You push or you tap, or I guess just touch on the touchpad, and you can walk forward. You can move strafe left and right, walk backward. You click it in, you have a jetpack type thrust, and navigating the environment is a challenge. It's the biggest challenge that I've seen in the game. All the puzzles, and I put that in air quotes, are pretty light. Like nothing has really challenged me in that way, but it's a really good mobile game. If this was on computer or PC VR or even PlayStation VR, I would be less impressed. Like part of what I'm impressed here is the fact that you can play it on the go. It's definitely in my recommend list. How much is it? We
It's
got a key
$10,
for
I
it.
think. $10.
Oh hell yeah! For 10
Yeah.
bucks, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, $9.99, I believe. That, yeah, I was surprised by that price too. I think if you have an Oculus Go and you want to see what like I mean, it's trying to be a big boy game, basically. It's trying to give you a taste of what like an Oculus Rift game or an HTC Vive game. And it's not quite there. And Steve, did you ever own a PlayStation Vita at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so I had a PlayStation Vita very early in its life somehow, and I was playing like Hot Shots Golf on my PlayStation Vita. I was playing Wipeout 2049 or whatever the game was. I was playing like the Uncharted game that was on the Vita, and I was playing all these games on my Vita, and I was thinking to myself, wow, this is almost like a PlayStation 3 in my hands. And so as I'm playing these games, I'm marveling at how close it is to PlayStation 3. But then at the same time, I'm noticing all the cracks and I'm noticing all the seams. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not quite a PlayStation 3 game. You know what I mean? And I kind of felt the same way when I was playing this game, where if you're not paying really close attention and you're just kind of walking around and looking at these worlds and you're hovering with your hover pack and you don't have any problems with the controls too much, and sometimes you even look at your arm, and they do a pretty decent job of like inverse kinematics with that arm that comes out. Like it's usually in kind of the right place. And so it's like, if you're not paying really close attention, you almost think this is almost like a Rift or a Vive game, not a graphically intense one, but, you know, almost. But then if you start looking at the bushes and you start looking at the textures that are on these like canyon walls and stuff, if you start paying closer attention, you immediately notice, yeah, like you kept saying, it's a mobile game, it's a mobile game, it's a mobile game. And so you notice that mobile game factor. But when you were playing this at all, did you start to think of the Oculus Quest at all? Because see, I think this is a Snapdragon 825, right? And we're going to the Snapdragon 835. And were you thinking, God, I hope the Quest is quite a little bit better than this, but like, you know, it's kind of those mixed emotions, right?
Well, to be clear, I'm not sure that it's a Snapdragon 825, but I am sure that it's not, the Go is not in a Snapdragon 835. It is a lower chip, but I don't want to say something and be wrong. That's kind of my point, right? Like you just hit the nail on the head. Like it as impressive as it was, like I can't fault the developer. They knocked it out of the park with the tool set that they were given. And I think if you like playing games on the Oculus Go, like this is a game you should have in your library. That all being said, it does feel like it never once lost the feeling that I was playing a mobile VR game. And that is my concern in a bigger sense with the Oculus Quest. Like I think the fidelity, and I think it'll be more impressive than playing this game on an Oculus Go that was ported originally from Daydream. I think Oculus Quest will be no question higher fidelity than that and have deeper experiences. But in the end, my point still remains the same, in the sense, and I think Carmack said it, you know, if we just simply think of things as power. You know, I have a 750 watt, I think, power supply in my desktop PC. That is just simply not going to translate to a 5 watt or whatever the battery in an Oculus Quest is going to be. Like what the efficiencies that they'll do and what they're able to squeeze that lemon and get as much out of it that they can will no doubt be very impressive. But they can't cheat the laws of physics. Like, you know, it's still a low powered device, and it will remain a low powered device so long as they have to rely on battery technology. So for that, I remain cautiously optimistic about mobile VR.
Yeah, I think the real key with the Oculus Quest is going to be when we get the Oculus Quest and we're playing games and we look at a bush or we look at the wall or something. How quickly are we going to notice the seams, or are you really going to have to go out of your way to notice the seams? And I think if you have to go out of your way to notice the seams and the imperfections, basically the fact that you're not really on a high-end PC type of thing, if you kind of have to go out of your way to notice that, I think the Quest is going to be very successful, and I think even semi-graphic horrors are going to be able to deal with it. But if you can really easily notice the seams, it's going to be a little, and it's really going to come down to the developers and how they shade things, how they basically hide things, and how they use the art style to kind of hide limitations. Like, you know, we played Dead and Buried or Drop Dead or whatever on our Oculus Go, and it's hard to notice much of a downgrade at all because of the way the visual aesthetic like does a great job of hiding things.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. Like certain games will lend itself, like Ken, Blaze Rush, like all those are just kind of 1-to-1 on the Oculus Go. I imagine they'll even be closer to 1-to-1 on the Oculus Quest. And I think a game like Beat Saber to me is like it's a no-brainer for PlayStation VR and Turkey Day. It's a no-brainer to have Beat Saber on the Oculus Quest, and I assume it's one of those day one games. They would be crazy for it not to be. But all that, like, I think some games will be seamless. There won't be the cracks. And again, Beat Saber will probably be one of those games. But then at the same time, the games that I'm most hungry for, and the content, whether it be gaming or not, whether it's modeling something in VR or art or whatever, like the things that require that horsepower is just simply cannot be done. Like, we will not be able to have Fallout 4 on Oculus Quest. Like, the hardware isn't there, and that's that's okay, I guess, if you're well aware of that limitation. But it seems to me that if we're going to talk in any way about mainstream gaming and what it means to be mainstream and all that, we talked about that last week, I think. But if we're going to talk about mainstream, the mainstream right now, what's the latest game? You know, Tomb Raider, Battlefield
Red
5,
Dead.
or Red Dead. Like that's the fidelity that I want to see in VR, and I just don't know how the Quest is going to do it. And I think that there's a large portion of potential consumers out there that want that. They want to play Battlefield 5 or Red Dead, and Quest isn't going to get it there. Quest is going to be in the direction, and is why I keep calling it mobile. They're going to be for the kids that are playing Angry Birds and people that want to play crap on iPads. That's not me, and I think for most people watching this, it's probably not them. It'll be a nice alternative when you can't be at home and you can't be playing on your desktop, but I don't think it's going to be something that you prefer to your desktop constantly.
But as a VR gamer, do you think you could possibly think about it in such a way where it's like, okay, if it's a Fallout game, I'm playing that on my PC. If it's like a super hot Beat Saber Windlands type game, I'll play that on the Quest. Like, do you think level think, okay, that's a PC game, that's a Quest game, and you kind of use both of them and you're happy with both of them, but you know if you're going to play a Primordian type game, you want to be on your PC rig, and if you're going to play something kind of super hot or Beat Saber-ish, you're going to be on your Quest. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly how it would be. Like I don't even play Kin on my Rift anymore. There's no point. I'd rather play it on my Go at a higher resolution without a wire and stretched out on the couch that I don't have in this room. So yeah, I think that's going to be the extent of it. But I look at it as a product that will augment PC VR, at least for as an enthusiast. I don't see it as a like only option. Like if I was going to have only one VR headset, the Oculus Quest would not be it. Like, and there are going to be consumers out there that inevitably the only headset they have is an Oculus Quest, and inevitably the only thing they're going to be able to play with any meaningful accuracy, fidelity, is going to be the games that are suited for that. Like they're going to miss out. They're not going to play Project Cars 2 on an Oculus Quest unless we get some sort of PC streaming capability, or you know, able to tether it to a PC in some way.
Yeah, it's kind of like having like a Nintendo Switch or something. Like if you have a PS4 and a Switch, you know, you're going to play Red Dead on your PS4, you know, but you can play other stuff on your Switch. I know you got a little bit of screaming going on there in the background. Kids running around.
I can't hear it.
Oh,
yep, sorry.
No, it's not a big deal. But I have on the screen, I mean, we're about to get out of here, but I have on the screen Transpose. Now, I know you didn't play a lot of this, but I liked it, and you weren't necessarily in love with it. I just thought maybe you could share some of your thoughts of your brief time with it.
Well, you know, like it's exactly that. Like I didn't love it. And there wasn't anything in particular that that I could point to as to why I didn't love it. Now I'm hearing the whichever kid's crying. We have some family that is visiting us, so there's that. Apologies for anyone hearing something in the stream, but like it looks good. Like it's good execution. I like the developer, Secret Location. I've liked everything they've done, but when I went into this game to play it, it didn't. You know, there's some games that are executed well, that you can look and you say, okay, this game isn't a piece of crap. It isn't something that someone churned out in 3 hours and trying to make a quick buck. Like, it's obviously that they spent time on Transpose and that it has good execution, but at the same time, it doesn't grab you. Like, you're not interested. Like, you don't want to keep going. You want to turn it off and go play something else. And that's what I felt like in Transpose. I can't look at anything and say, this is what they've done wrong. I wish the game did this. You know, they should have zigged instead of zagged. Like, I can't say anything about this game. Like, on paper, it's fine. I guess I'm like Gary when it comes to Beat Saber. Like, it's just not my bag. Like, for whatever reasons, it didn't hook me. So, I probably should keep my comments there, because I don't want to put someone off, because I'd say odds are, you know, most people will like this game, and I don't want to somehow negatively impact the game by saying it didn't hook me. I don't mind to critique a game if it does something wrong. Hey, that design is crap, or the controls are broken, or it looks bad. None of that's the case here with Transpose. It looks fine, it plays fine, controls are fine. It's not for me, and I didn't put a ton of time into it because it's not for me.
Yeah, I know that for myself personally, one of my problems, or I mean, you can kind of consider it to be a problem, is I have a habit of like falling in love with like sometimes just the visual look of a game and like the sound and stuff. It's like when I play Transpose, like I'm not going to get up on stage and say, "Oh my God, this has the best gameplay ever." You know, the gameplay is decent, but for me, it's more just being in the world, the sound, and kind of the Tron look of it, and like looking at my robot-looking body and stuff, and that kind of. But I know there's other gamers, they don't care about that, and so they get into Transpose and they're like, "This isn't that great," you know. So there's kind of a yin and the yang there. Anything else you wanted to cover before we bounce out of here, or are we pretty much good?
Oh, I think we're good. We can head out.
Okay. All right, so I guess that is going to go ahead and wrap it up. But you know what? Before we wrap it up, what do we need you guys to do? Yeah, go ahead and tickle that like button. Go ahead and subscribe. Do all the wonderful things that we need you to do so that we continue to show up here as the months, weeks, and years go by. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode of VR365 and also for VR Roundtable. Oh,
episode 103. Because I don't know if you do the episode. Yeah. It's episode 103, I believe. Maybe 104.
Go ahead, do the outro for VR Roundtable. You can go.
That's fine. We're out. So subscribe, guys. Like we're on episode 100 and whatever. Like you've been here before. Most of you probably already hit stop by now anyway. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right, take it easy, guys. Bye.
Bye.